Well, hello and welcome to you. It's nice to be together again. Now, it's supposed to be the summer, but what has happened to the weather? Now, it's summertime, it should be sunny and we should have blue skies, and instead it's been dull and we've had rain and even thunder. Never mind, we're together again and we're here today for another story, and I have a really good story for you today. It's a very old story. It's a story from the Bible, a story that Jesus told. And we know that Jesus told lots of stories, but Jesus was also a teacher and he used his stories to teach the people. But Jesus didn't teach in a classroom or even in a school. Instead, Jesus taught his lessons wherever he was, and then that could be up a hillside or maybe down by the sea or in a field. And one time Jesus even took a boat out into the middle of the lake and he taught the crowds of people while he was sitting in the boat. And Jesus used stories that people would understand. He would tell a simple story, but actually there was an important message in that story, and that's the kind of story that we would call parables. I'm going to tell you one of those stories now. This is the parable of the lost son, and it was a story that Jesus told to teach people that God would never stop loving them. There was once a man who had 2 sons. One day the younger son came to his father and said, "I want my share of your property right now." Although his father was very sad, he agreed to give his son what he wanted. "Great," said the younger son, and as soon as he had his money, he packed his bag and he was off. He travelled to another country. When he arrived in the new country, people found out that he had loads of money. They came to all of his parties. The younger son enjoyed himself with his new friends. He bought whatever he wanted and did whatever he liked. But soon his money was all gone, and so were his so-called friends. Worse, there was a food shortage in that country. So now he was all alone. No money, no food, no friends, no family. At last he got a job feeding pigs. It was a job no one else wanted, but he was desperate. So he took the job. No one spoke to him. No one cared about him. No one looked after him. His clothes were in rags and he was so hungry he wished he could share the pigs' food. One day, as he was watching the pigs snuffling around, he remembered how kind his father was. He remembered that even the people who worked for his father were well looked after and well fed. He thought, "I will go back and tell my father how sorry I am. And I know that I'm no longer fit to be called his son, but maybe he will give me a job. Maybe he will let me work for him." And so he headed off on the long journey home. But he was worried that his dad wouldn't even let him in the house, worried that his dad had forgotten about him. He was weary and hungry, and as he trudged along, there in the distance he saw something. He was still a long way from home, but he could see, yes, it was his dad, it was his father. Far from forgetting his son, he had been watching and waiting every day for his son to come home. And at last, here he was, his son. He was thin and dressed in rags and limping along, but yes, it was his son. The father ran towards him, filled with love for his son. The first thing he did was give him a big hug. The younger son could hardly believe it. Here he was, after all that he had done, and his father was hugging him and overjoyed to see him again. The son tried to explain how sorry he was, and he would do anything to make up for what he had done. But already His father was rejoicing and making plans to have a big party for him. When they got home, there was music and dancing and wonderful food. However, his brother, the elder son, was not too chuffed at all at all the fuss his father was making, and he complained loudly and wouldn't even come into the party. The father said to his elder son, "This is a party for all of us, not just for your brother. But we should all celebrate because your brother was lost and now he is found." I hope you enjoyed that story. It's a well-known story and it's a well-loved story. And even though it's a very old story, it's still got something to teach us even now. To us, it might be a story that we understand. The lost son goes off and he gets up to all sorts of mischief. But at the end of the day, his dad still welcomes him home and forgives him. And we can understand that story because, if we're honest, we've all misbehaved at one time and another. And perhaps we're afraid to tell our parents what we've been up to because maybe we think they won't love us anymore. But of course, our parents will never stop loving us. No matter what we do, there's always forgiveness and mercy and a new opportunity, for a new beginning. We get another chance. And that was what Jesus was trying to teach the people who he was telling stories to. That God never stops loving us. That God is so happy when we come to him, just like the father in the story was when his lost son came back home to him. He was so happy that he actually threw a big party for him, had a big celebration. Well, I hope that the weather gets better. I hope that the sun comes out and that you're able to get out on your bike or your scooter or even just for a walk. Until next time, stay safe. God bless.